Hello and welcome to Rose Cottage Notions, where we talk about sewing, courage, and creativity, history boundings, and all things historical costuming. I got a question recently about where people can find historical patterns, and that sent me down a rabbit hole on the internet, and I was going to share with you today all of the pattern companies that I found. And a lot of these, the patterns are going to be very useful for if you want historical recreation, if you want to be historically inspired, if you want to do some history bounding. There's going to be a lot of uses for these patterns. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make 2D fabrics into 3D objects. You can pattern draft, you can drape on a dress form, or you can purchase patterns. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Maybe I'll do another video another time about draping or drafting. It's not really my expertise, but I could give it the college try. Hey, future video editing me popping in really quick to say something I forgot to say during the video, which is none of these companies are sponsoring this video, nor am I receiving any kind of financial gain from it. I just found these companies on the internet and thought I would share them with you. So let's get back to your regular programming. Let's go check out the patterns. I know that this isn't necessarily going to be a real popular opinion, but we're going to start with the commercial pattern companies. And you know, if you're a new sewist, these companies are perfectly acceptable to get started on. Their patterns tend to be a little bit less complicated than truly historical pieces, and these also really lend themselves to folks if they want to history bound some of these costumes. So there's Simplicity and there's Butterick. You know, you got the big three pattern companies out there, and you can look through these. There's a lot of variety and different eras and different themes in these, but they certainly are a great place to start. It can be really difficult to find earlier period costuming patterns, early Renaissance through that era. So I was able to find a few pattern companies that did do this era. If you're going earlier than, say, the 14th, 13th, 14th century, there's not a lot of patterns out there. The garments were generally made out of rectangles and triangles and variations of that. So there really isn't patterns per se as much as pattern drafting. And I might do a video in the future, kind of like what I'm doing today with the different pattern companies, showing you different tutorials and different videos that can help you draft those earlier period costumes. This company has a fairly wide range of different outfits that are available. Let's see, which one do we want to look at? Let's look at Italian Renaissance, one of my favorite ones. So I'm assuming that you get these patterns up here in the banner. Looking through this pattern information, sizes 8 to 18, not terribly size inclusive, but these are also fairly simple costumes put together, so you can easily size these up. Looking at another costume company is Margo's Patterns. She also focuses on earlier periods, and since we're going with Italian costumes, we can look here. She does have a range of different types of costumes, so let's look again at that Guara. Here we have a little bit more size inclusivity with sizes 2 to 30. This pattern is a digital download, so you'll be able to print it off at home. You know, don't be intimidated by these digital downloads. I find them very useful if I'm going to be making more than one of these garments. You know, if you buy a paper pattern, you either have to trace it or you have to cut into the pattern. I like these downloaded patterns so that I can start fresh each time I start a garment. Next company we're going to look at is Mantua Maker. And again, this is one of the places that does have some of these earlier garments. Not quite as much of a range as the other earlier companies. So let's look at the Spanish loose gown. Not terribly size inclusive, but again, they're fairly simple garments and you could upsize them fairly easily. Looking at their patterns, so they have a different range of patterns. Let's look at this. This particular pattern is a little bit more size inclusive, so it may depend on which pattern you're looking at. Looking at Laughing Moon, we have, looks like they're all downloads. This company has a real wide variety of patterns that you can look at. Ooh, that's kind of cool. This would be a great one for folks that are wanting to do some history bounding. This one is good. It has the pattern measurements and looking at how much fabric you're going to need. Some of these companies are going to be better than others with their instructions. You can have lots of ways to tart this one up. Oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. So, check them out. Black Snail is another company that specializes mostly in later periods from the 17th century on. Here's a red and goat. These are a little bit more size inclusive. The red and goat goes size 8 to 30, EU 34 to 56. So there's a little bit more size inclusivity here. So when you go into that shop now, there is a whole bunch of patterns. And this is another one that would be interesting if you want to do some history bounding. This would make a lovely winter coat to wear with walking skirts. And they do have a fair number of men's outfits. Let's see what size. 34 to 56. So it's fairly size inclusive. That's good to see. Oh, this pattern. Yeah, I really want to make this pattern. I would wear the heck out of this. It'd be great in the cold office that I work in. The next company that I'm going to look at, they specialize mostly in hats. So let's look at 19th century patterns. So they have some bonnets here. Oh, that would be a fun one just for the summers. Looks like they are available in both paper and in download. Let's look at the 14th century. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah. Got some sexy liripipe action going on here. So a lot of different views on a particular hat. What are some of the other ones that they have? Let's look at 20th century patterns. Wow. Okay, so I don't know. I don't really have anything that with this hat, but I seriously need this hat. I think that hat has to happen for me. Looking at past patterns, now they range from the 1800s to the 1940s. So look at some of those earlier ranges. Got some stays, got some coats and Regency pieces. Let's look at this one. Napoleonic era. So size 36 to 46, fairly size inclusive. It does tell you how many yardage is required. Next up is Reconstructing History. And it looks like they have a range of from 14th century, 15th century. They apparently have a lot of patterns. Into Victorian lounge suits. Looks like a lot of Victorian stuff here. So we have stays, corsets. Let's check this fine specimen of a gentleman out here. So Victorian tailcoat type of product. So paper pattern, downloadable. Let's look at medieval patterns. So they have some dressing guides. Let's look at this complete package. What do they have there? Kirtle size group. So busts up to 60. So that's pretty size inclusive. So you get kirtle, underdress, side coat, sideless surcoat, and various accessories. So next up is Sense and Sensibility. Looking at their pattern range, we've got Georgian through the 1950s, so let's check out the Regency period. Really lovely photographs. Romantic era. Oh, these would be fun for history bounding. I'd wear the heck out of that. Here we have Ageless Patterns. Let's check out their new patterns. So it looks like they're really focusing in on Victorian. Have a bunch of accessories. So let's go back to new patterns 1. Check this one out. Oh, I'd really like to see someone, if they've made this up. I would love to see that. Now, if you're interested in the old-timey West or gunpowder, this company here, Buckaroo Bobbins, has a bunch of different patterns that you might be interested in. Now, let's take a look at this one. I don't know about the historical accuracy of them, but some of these would be a real fun history bounding outfit. So next up we have Folkwear. This is a company that's been around for quite some time. They have a really eclectic mix, and I think that this is much more for history bounding than it is for, truly historical pieces, because there's a lot here that would just be so much fun to just make up and wear around, like this outfit here. Walking skirt with the armistice blouse, the classic folkwear illustration style. So there's lots of different patterns that they have available. James Country Mercantile has a fairly limited range of patterns, but they're worth checking out. There's not a lot of information here. They have some different patterns, especially some for men. So this is Past Reflections. When we look at clothing patterns for ladies, they have 7 different patterns. Let's look at this one. So size options goes up to 24. Pattern sizing information. Next is truly Victorian. They go from early 19th century all the way up to the early 20th century. So we're looking at the Romantic era, the hoop skirts. We can look at this Romantic era here and see what we have going on. So they have paper pattern, E pattern. What's their size range? So it looks like all sizes are included, and it goes up to a 56-inch bust. So that's fairly size inclusive. Let's look at some of their Edwardian. Oh, those are fun. Oh, those are fun. Okay. So not gonna lie, I would totally make this up in some lovely, thin, beautiful cotton, and I would just lounge around in my house all the time in this. I think that's exactly what I would do. It's lovely. This company seems to be fairly size inclusive. Now, another place that you can also look is over on Etsy. You can just put the search term in historical patterns and you will get a whole bunch of different options. So I just pulled out a few of them here to share with you. And this first one is fig leaf patterns, and it looks like they mostly stick with Regency there, but they do have a lot of different patterns that are available. Next we have Fashion Revisited. Again, it is an Etsy shop and they seem to be specializing in accessories. Now this one here, Chemizette, and that would be kind of fun if you're history bounding. Make this up and wear it underneath a jacket, kind of like the Dickies that we used to wear back in the 1980s. Now here is another vintage pattern shop. It's the Vintage Pattern Lending Library. And I think what this company does is take patterns that are out of copyright and reproduces them. Like this one here has a 28-inch waist. So you get kind of what you get on the sizes, and you would need to size them up. This is an important piece to note here. Is some of these older patterns don't have quite as thorough instructions available, and it's probably better to have a little bit of experience sewing going into some of these vintage patterns, but they're not completely daunting for individuals who might be a little bit new. You just may need to spend a lot more time puzzling over the instructions. And then again, this is the same sort of thing. Okay, I have to learn to knit so that I can make this. I need this in my life. I think I need it for Christmas. I think that would be so much fun to wear around the holidays. Let's see, what else does she have? This one here, Edwardian lace vest. So this one has a bust of 36. This is a digital download. Oh, that would be pretty. Oh yeah. Gosh, that would make a great basis for a wedding dress. This last one that I was going to share for you, it's not a commercial pattern company. It's a museum that is doing a project where they're taking pieces from their collection and then providing patterns for them. And so they have 18th century going all the way up to more modern periods. We have, for instance, we have the man's zoot suit here, which is early 20th century. The zoot suit movement, it's one of those things that we are not really taught about in school because it's definitely a darker period in our history. I really encourage people to go and Google zoot suits and zoot suit riots and learn more about that piece of history and why these garments were so important to a culture at that time and place. Another one of them, let's see, let's go down. Let's go to women's lounging pattern. I think they have a different definition of lounging pattern than I do. So again, they provide the pattern, and then here they have a little bit more of a detailed drawing. These patterns are probably not for the faint of heart. I think that they are probably more complicated things to make. First of all, you're drafting it from a grid pattern. There are a number of different videos out there on how to upsize from patterns. I would love to see if anyone makes these, let us know, because I think that would be fantastic. So that's what I have in the way of historical patterns available. These are not the only companies that are out there. They're just the ones that I thought might be the most useful to folks looking for patterns and giving you an idea of where you can start. So take some time and look around these pattern companies, bookmark to your heart's content. I'm sure that you will find something you will be able to use. So I hope you found this video of value and perhaps found a new pattern company that you can give your money to. I'm an enabler. I'm a helper. It's a curse. It's a curse. I'm a helper. Yeah. Another way that you can help small channels like mine is by supporting them. And I have a number of different ways that you can support this channel to help me grow it, being able to bring you really quality content. So there's a couple of different ways you can support me down below, so check those out. And until next time, I bid you joy.